Hello and welcome to the Joy of Cooking podcast. Each week we set the table for a discussion about recipes and stories from the authors of the Joy of Cooking cookbook, kitchen victories, misadventures, and most importantly, what we're cooking and eating right now. We're glad you joined us at the table. I'm Dirk Marshall, guest host, fanboy to the authors of the Joy of Cooking, and at risk of losing any remaining culinary cred, I'm a hardcore into zoodles.
Wow. I'm Megan Scott, co-author of the 2019 edition of The Joy of Cooking. I'm a food editor by day and avoider of dish duty by night, and I'm on a mission to get people to eat okra raw.
Good luck. No, it's delicious. I'm John Becker, fourth-generation co-author and steward of The Joy of Cooking, America's oldest family-run cookbook, and I am a pan juice enthusiast.
Pan juice.
Yeah, more than gravy. I would go for pan juice over gravy.
I know. We discussed this last night, the night before last.
Yeah, the night before last.
And then you made the pan juices really sour, and I couldn't
I thought
eat
that
them.
they were delicious.
I generally agree with you, though. More concentrated. Pan juices are just more concentrated gravy.
It's like unpremeditated gravy.
Mm-hmm.
You need gravy if you're going to be putting it on something else. You know, like, what is it? Mashed potatoes?
What do people put gravy on? Yeah, so the reason I brought up eating okra raw is because we had some recently. I made stewed okra and tomatoes to go with some fried chicken that we made. But we had a bunch left over, and it's just delicious raw. It's crunchy, and it's not slimy, and you dip it in stuff.
It's not a vegetable I've had here often, and so I think I've only had the worst versions, which are usually very slimy.
Oh, yeah. Even in the stewed okra and tomatoes that I made, the okra definitely thickened the sauce, but I didn't consider it slimy. Did you?
Ooh, on the spot.
No. It was great.
That's why I like okra. It's like a vegetable and a thickener of sauces. What have you been cooking this week, Dirk?
Oh, man. So my wife, Sarah Marshall, started a Substack called Sauce Me Up, and I'm her recipe tester, just like when she did her cookbook. So I've been making a lot of sauces and the dishes that kind of go with those sauces. So one of those things was a grilled cheese that I've never made this way. So you put the bread both sides buttered in the pan.
No mayonnaise, right?
Nope.
They don't have mayonnaise in their house.
And then
Sometimes it's left here, though.
Yeah, no. Once that side's browned, you turn it, then you cheese it.
Okay.
And you do both sides at the same time like that. And then you combine it.
Okay, so you're like browning both sides of the bread.
Yeah.
But when you flip them, then you put the cheese on.
Yeah.
And then you put them
combine
together.
it. And then you have a grilled cheese sandwich that's like crunchy all the way through. And it was super good.
Yeah, that
And
sounds delicious.
Yeah, I loved it. So we made that. And then I also got out the Big Night cookbook. And I made a shawarma spiced salmon with the quick yogurt flatbreads and a little salad. And that was super delicious as well.
Yeah, that sounds really good. I haven't made anything out of that cookbook yet, but I've got a bunch of flags stuck in it.
That's how so many of the
all
books
my
are.
cookbooks.
Yeah, and so I just picked one and was like, this is the one today. So
There needs to be like really, really visible danger flag. Like, need to make this now.
yeah.
I don't know. How do you prioritize? Do you have like color coded flags?
Yeah, you get a different color and you mark that one as the like serious one.
Yeah,
I have to make
you
this.
do that, but I don't think that you really have any rhyme or reason.
No, I don't.
You think, oh, I'm gonna have this color now.
I just use shreds of paper, honestly. And this time, our daughter's a fan of this shawarma sauce that we got in New York. And so anything that's shawarma, there's even a shawarma spot that she likes to get food from. So I knew this salmon would be a hit. She wasn't that hungry, so she didn't, I think, even try it. But it was all A for effort, I think.
Yeah.
So pat myself on the back for
Yeah,
that one.
good job.
Yeah.
You did good.
Thank you.
What about you, John?
I fried some chicken, like you mentioned. It was nice weather, so did it outside.
That's
which
the way to
is-
do it if you have a little camp stove or like a propane stove to fry the chicken outside.
Yeah, that is the trick, is to not fry inside. But buttermilk marinade can kind of our standard recipe where, it's like a flour cornstarch dredge that I think I subbed some like Cajun seasoning for the salt.
You really can't over season the dredge.
No.
It takes so much salt to do it.
Do you do your own Cajun seasoning, or do you just have like just a quick?
We have done our own Cajun seasoning, but we have been gifted like gigantic bottles of Slap Ya Mama, like Cajun seasoning.
Oh my!
And so, yeah, I was like, oh, this is an opportunity to,
Yeah, I got to use it.
go
you
through some
go.
of this Cajun seasoning.
Hmm.
They have a few different blends, and this one has like a ton of white pepper in it, and it's like not quite as spicy, I think, as the other ones, but it's really, really tasty.
Yeah.
So-
Do they all involve mama slapping?
Yeah,
Well, neither of our mothers were present.
Yeah, I
so
can't really speak to that.
Just checking. Just checking.
seems rude, but I made biscuits, and because it's just the two of us that we had so many biscuits.
They looked amazing.
They were really good. The bottom got really crispy. I made strawberry shortcake with leftover biscuits because now strawberries are finally in season and they're so good.
Hmm.
So we had the strawberries, and then I made whipped cream, but I bought this little jar of pistachio paste. It's like sweetened pistachio butter basically. So good. And I just added some of that to the whipping cream as I was whipping it and to make like a pistachio whipped cream. That was so good.
That sounds amazing.
You could eat that on its own. It was delicious.
I will.
It was really good with the strawberries.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, pistachio and strawberries.
You also did a harissa butter that I was asking about.
Oh, John made that.
Right, yeah. No, that was a recipe test for my other job.
Mm.
It was like a harissa compound butter. You just let the butter sit out until it's nice and soft, and then it was harissa. That one had like smoked paprika as well. And I had used like this harissa. I cannot remember the brand, but it is not like a common brand. It was like really nice though, and actually that one was kind of smoky too. It had lemon juice in it. Yeah, it was really, really good with put it on grilled corn.
You did that Serrano butter before, so you're kind of my butterman.
John the Butterman.
Hmm.
Butterman John.
Butterman Becker.
I will try to live up to this new title.
We also made a couple days ago our recipe of the week, our Joy Scouts recipe of the week, which was grandma style pan pizza on page 616. And that turned out really well. We topped ours with Italian sausage and those delicious Castelvetrano olives, and some big scoops of ricotta and Calabrian chilies. But yeah, it's just delightful and so easy.
It's not like focaccia-y.
No, it's not thick. It's pretty. The crust is, I would say, fairly thin.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like what 3/4 of an inch, maybe.
No, not even half.
Fine.
But yeah, I would say the main tip after remaking the recipe, the main tip I would give people is to, when you stretch the dough out in the pan, it wants to spring back on itself and contract. But if you spread it out and then cover it and let it sit for 10 minutes and then come back and stretch it again, I think I did that 3 times to let it relax and fully cover the bottom of the pan. That's the key. So don't be in a big old rush.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about that in the recipe, but I think that we're like, just do it once. But
Yeah, I did it multiple times. I think I did it 3 times. But I was being a little obsessive about it. You could be less, type A about it and just bake it imperfectly. But I can't do that.
That's big of you to say.
There's not a lot of parenting terms in baking, but we call that a timeout. Basically, you
Timeout.
get 3 timeouts. 'Cause you're like,
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Give the dough a timeout.
Would you think about how you're behaving, and then we'll regroup.
Relax your gluten.
So please try the recipe. It's on page 616. If you do make it, please tag us on Instagram at The Joy of Cooking and let us know what you think.
Cooking with matcha? It all starts with the right tea. And that's where you need to pick Mizuba Tea Co., sourced directly from heritage tea farms in Japan. Mizuba's matcha is crafted by award-winning farms in Yuji, Japan. Vibrant, umami-rich, and stone-milled per traditional methods. It's the top quality ingredient for lattes, desserts, and even savory dishes. Not to mention whisking on its own as a ceremonial style matcha. Whether you're making a matcha cheesecake or dreaming of a spring matcha tiramisu, start with the best. Taste the tradition. Shop at mizubatea.com. That's mizubatea.com. And use the code JOYOFMATCHA, that's JOYOFMATCHA, for 15% off your first order.
This week, we would like to welcome guest Holly Ong to the table. Holly Ong is the co-founder of Sibeho, a Singaporean food startup here in Portland, Oregon. In 2019, she left the corporate world to pursue entrepreneur possibilities and follow her passion in creating community and making people happy through food. One of her earliest food making memories has her at age 5 or so, sitting on her grandma's kitchen floor, defluffing chestnuts for Ama's rice dumpling for the Dragon Boat Festival. These days, Holly delights in sharing a taste of Singapore through recreating her childhood multicultural food experience and making award-winning products, all proudly crafted in Oregon for foodies locally and across the nation. Holly, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be on your
It's so
show.
great to have you. And I will go ahead and spill the beans, but before we started recording, you made a very delicious dish for us to try. Could you talk a little bit about what you made?
When Sarah and said that you guys were doing the podcast, I was like, sure, I would love to be on it and talk about it because I geek out over like books that are so well researched and written with all the food things inside that I love to read. And I said, shall I bring a crab? Can I make Singapore chili crab? And Sarah said, sure. And then I had to follow up. Is everybody okay? Because I cook with live crabs. It's going to be moving. And she said, yeah.
Yeah, we're good with crabs.
It went to a very good crab heaven.
It did. It was very delicious. It was very tasty.
Saucy heaven.
Yes. And we're gonna get into talking about crabs in more detail in a second. But before we get into that, what have you been cooking and eating this week that you're really excited about?
Actually, funnily enough, because it was my birthday last week, so and my parents are in town visiting from Singapore, so we actually had crabs too. So I've been eating a lot of crabs. The Dungeness crabs in Oregon is special for us because it's so good, and it has a special place with Sibeho, our brand, because that was the start of when we had the kind of like the eureka aha moment, because I was down on the coast with Pat near Manzanita, and I remember we bought some crabs, and then I asked her, hey, what do you want to do with this? Because here, I mean, I learned to eat seafood with butter and lemon, and we're like, okay, we can eat that, but surely, because we had a lot of crabs, right? And she said, can you make chili crab? And I was like, yeah, I can make my mom sambal. And then that kind of started it because there was a little shop, like I think it was called the Little Big Apple or something like that there. And then they had kind of the things we needed. And I had my mom sambal on me as well because I kind of travel with it, especially when you go to beach houses, right? So you cook because there's not always restaurants that you can go to here. So we made that, and then we're like, oh, do you think anybody want to eat this here? And that kind of started down the journey of creating Singaporean food here in Portland, Oregon. Because in a lot of times, Singapore, like if you look at a map, the font for Singapore is actually bigger than a dot as our country. And people get confused because ethnically, when you look at me, I am Chinese, but my favorite breakfast is Indian. And then when I tell people that, they get confused. And like, what do you mean by that? Yeah, I eat, like my favorite is roti prata or the plaster, the one with the egg, and I like to eat it with dal, right? And then it's like, so you can talk forever and keep trying to tell people things, but the fastest, easiest way is to cook for people, right? So we started doing that, and we hosted supper clubs for almost a year. And then COVID, and then we kind of had a coming out party, and that's when I first met Sarah via Judy, and who helped us organize that. And we cooked all these flavors and food that we grew up with. Some of them are like festive food, some of them are stuff, but basically things that don't really exist. Because Chinese food, like I learned to eat American Chinese food, and I love General Chow's chicken, but it doesn't exist in our part of the world. That's the genre itself is special, right? And our Chinese food is also different because we're a nation of immigrants. We're third generation, fourth generations, and like Hainanese chicken rice in Singapore is different from Hainan. If you go back there, now they have it, but it was created by Hainanese immigrants who came to Singapore, right? So like we can talk a lot, but always I found the easiest way is, even when we're sampling at our farmers market, I just try to get people to taste it first. Because once you taste it, then your taste buds, it opens the aperture in your mind. And then I tell them, oh, I actually don't eat Singaporean food every day. Surprise, surprise. Like I eat grilled cheese sandwich. Today I learned about another style, right? But I'm like, I'm a mayo grilled cheese person. But I put sambal in mine, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, I bet the sambal is very good in a grilled cheese sandwich.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like marrying the best of flavors. Like Oregon has such incredible produce. I've learned to be like local in the sense that I don't eat strawberries unless they're in season. So last Saturday, we went to pick hoot strawberries. And then we went to see the peony farms.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I feel like your mindset kind of changes when you live here a little bit around. At least it did for me around eating strawberries, because now I'm like only the best. I
berries-
will only
berries in general.
I will only eat them in the spring when they're in season, and it feels snobby, but they're so good that way.
They're so good. Even though like Sarah will come home from the farmer's market with berries and it's like we have to give them to our daughter that day because the next day they're just I don't know what happens. They're so fragile and fresh that it's just
Yeah.
like but once you get used to that, you get excited. You're like, I'm gonna house so many
I'm
berries
just gonna
today.
eat all these
yeah.
now.
I have to. Out of respect for these berries.
It's a duty.
Yeah.
A few years ago, we went to a U-Pick, and it was maybe like the last week of strawberry season, and it was like they were falling apart. It was like jam on the, what is it, bushes?
Not a vine.
It's not a,
Yeah. But yeah, jam right off the plant.
yeah, and it was
so
warm from the
delicious.
sun. Oh my God.
Yum.
Holly, what's your relationship to Joy of Cooking? When did you first encounter the book?
Yeah, so I like to read cookbooks. And one of the earliest cookbooks I read when I went away to college in Australia was Stephanie Alexander's How to Cook Stuff, right? And Donna Hay. That's kind of where I learned how to do the Western stuff. And then I also cooked Singaporean stuff because I missed home. And then when I moved here, I had never, like, I had Julia Child's both her books and then quite a few other stuff as well. And then I remember meeting Judy Ann Wu, who's a publicist here in Portland. And she said, you have to go get this book. I'm like, what's that? And then I was like, oh my God, I love this. It's got so much information. And I geeked out for a while. And then I found out you guys were here. And then it was major geek out moment. Like, so when Sarah Marshall said that she was doing this, I was like, yes, please sign me up. So thank you so much for having me on this show and listening to me babble about Singaporean food.
Anytime. Thank you
Yeah,
so much for
seriously.
cooking
Please
us
come back.
crab. What a luxury. Seriously.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Holly, could you talk a little bit about what you make and sell?
Yeah. So when we started the supper club and journey about starting the company, we kept making sambals. But I think in the US, like we don't, unless we're desperate, don't really eat the sambal we find in the shop here because we always have it in our fridge. And it's kind of like a cheat sauce. It is spicy. And a lot of times the question we get is it a chili oil? No, it is not a chili oil. and then usually when I have a conversation with them, I'm like, actually, I can make chili oil and it probably takes me like half an hour because the cooking time is very short and you need just hot oil and the spices, right? But sambal takes a long time and the right peppers. So when we did our supper club, we were testing concepts anyway and cooking for fun, right? That was a lot because we got to enjoy whatever we cooked as well. But we thought about like, hey, as busy adults, because we had jobs, right? Well, I kind of still have a job now, but like, but when you are busy and you still want a good meal, because I remember what my mom was a working mom, but we always had a home cooked meal. And the reason why she could come home and cook very quickly was because she had cheat sauces like sambal in her fridge. Like the blue one that we have, the OMG sambal, that's her sambal. And for about 10 years, I was pescatarian, which I'm not now, but pretty much the only thing I would eat was her sambal fish. So she'll put it on salmon or whatever fish was in season or like available and just pop it in a hot oven and I would eat that. And it's very fast to cook with, right? So once you have that, you don't have to work so hard in the kitchen. So like a lot of the recipes we develop are actual ones we eat at home. And I always time myself. I should be able to make this in 20 minutes. If not, it's too much time. I mean, I can make the complicated, take 3 days and start from scratch and fry for like 6 hours or whatever. But you don't do that every day. I mean, it's like making bread, right? So like during COVID, I learned to make sourdough because I really could see the dough rise. But it's like, it's not like you want to... There's times when you do those, I call it slow cooking meals, where you want the flavors to develop, and times when you want a nice, healthy meal with good shopping. And we're very lucky in Portland, Oregon, and I didn't realize that not everywhere in the United States, the supermarkets are like the ones here in the farmer's market, which we're very lucky
they're
too.
incredible. Yeah, we are really lucky with food here.
I was told by friends that said, no, it's not normal. So I feel very lucky that I landed in the not normal, but very good food place.
Wow, the 20 minutes, that's a pretty strict criteria there for the recipes.
Well, we read it. I wrote one that was longer. It was a shrimp biryani. And that's also when, I was writing in a way where I was taught how to cook, right? So usually in Asia, nobody really measures. I had to sit the aunts, the grandmas were down and it's like, show me. And then, they was like, yeah, just use a rice bowl. I'm like, which rice bowl? Many rice bowls, right? So it's like watching the whole process. But I also understand where they're doing it because, they cook so much by instinct because a lot of them, at least the older generation, they got married very young. And the kitchen was all they spent their time in. So they had to do speed and buy well because they were given a budget to buy whatever was freshest, right? So they learned over time what to cook and some of the shortcuts as well. So in a way, like making the sambal was our kind of like, hey, this is actually real things. Because a lot of the comments we get when people taste, especially the Asians who are usually our harshest critics, they're like, oh, it's spicy. I'm like, yeah, it's real. This is exactly what we eat at home.
I have a question. So, growing up in Oregon, I feel like I was introduced to like sriracha at the same time as like a sambal, and I never knew what the difference between the two were, and I would see people use them interchangeably. Could you just say what a sambal is for listeners that maybe aren't?
Yeah, so sambal is actually a Malay word. In Southeast Asia, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, you will find sambals. There's fresh sambals, there's cooked sambals, which is like the ones we make, and there's fermented sambals as well. And generally, when we go to shops or at homes, it's usually spicy. It's made out of different types of stuff. There's usually alliums involved, but they interchange with different kind of like herbs. Sometimes there's kaffir lemon, sometimes there's lemongrass and stuff. But in general, it's only recently I think they started to have a little bit more naming conventions, like the sambal hijau, the sambal oleg, or whatever. But when we go to the shop or we are sitting down, we just ask, hey, uncle, we want sambal. And then it comes and we instinctively know which one we eat with what. So if you go to the more Malay nasi padang shop, which is kind of like a shop we go and then they have like as big as this table, rows of food, right? And you pick whatever you want and cooked whatever, and it's usually we eat with rice. So there'll be a curry, a fried thing and stuff. And each of them will have kind of like a company sambal. And you rock up and you're paying for it. Auntie will ask you which sambal you want. And then you point to whichever one from the taste profile of whatever you want to eat. But kind of like we grew up with it. So there isn't really a name. So even when we were making it, we're like, how do we call what we were going to do? So we kind of threw names out and then they stuck. Yeah. They're not rude names. AF is not what you think it is.
Yeah.
What does it stand for?
Sure.
So that's made by my best friend's mom, who auntie, and their last name is Featherstone. So AF is Auntie Feather.
Okay. I was wondering. I did think it meant the other thing, which I was like, okay, cool. Yeah. It's very edgy. But I like that you talked about how, sometimes you want to cook a long cooking dish, like you build up the flavor over a long time, like a braise or like, beef bourguignon or something where you saute the onions and then you have all your aromatics and you cook with wine and it simmers for hours. But then sometimes you just need a quick meal, but you still want it to taste really flavorful. And the sambal is a really nice way to add all of that flavor without cooking for a super long time.
Yeah, because actually when you think about the French restaurants or in the restaurant industries, the chefs they spend so much time making their sauces and their roux and their cheat sauces. And there are always these, these tubs that you see in the restaurant, like 32 ounce of something. But when they have it, those things have taken time to make, right? And when they have it, they can cook and plate everything they need for dinner service very quickly. So in a way, sambal is like a very good cheat sauce in your kitchen. So even actually when you make a curry, the blue one is actually... a lot of curry recipes that you read, the front part tells you to soak the dry chili, grind it, and then stand there for hours to fry with the alliums and stuff until the oil separates. You can cheat all of that and just use that directly and just change out the spices. So I can make 3 types of curries just using that. Change out the spice. You can have a yogurt-based one, you can have a tamarind-based one, and a coconut one, but you just change out, and depending on what you're cooking, a meat, a dal, or something, but that is your cheat sauce.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to ask you how you like to use the 3 different sambals that you make.
Well, when I eat Italian food, don't tell the Italians that. I would like puttanesca. I would stir a bit of booms in because it has the shrimp, the shrimp sauce. Because puttanesca has that sardine flavor, right? And I do like Singaporeans, Malaysians, Indonesians. Most of the time, we like things a bit spicy. We want the extra little bit. And I call it the cheat spice umami thing. It creates that bold flavor without you actually spending a lot of time in the kitchen. Yeah.
So the boom sauce has, what is it, shrimp paste?
Yeah, it's fermented shrimp paste. We call it belacan. It's also called terasi. And then all around Southeast Asia and in China as well, we all have a version of it because back in the days, it was the way they kept seafood, right? And there was the source of protein that they ate with rice or like a flavor enhancer. So that one, the boom sambal is what we usually eat with nasi lemak back home, which is coconut rice. And the dish is traditionally a breakfast dish. It's coconut rice, egg, crispy anchovies, and a slice of cucumber. You kind of mix everything up and you eat. Because last year I had to cook for a lot of different people. The kids want the food never to touch.
Right.
So we're like, no. We're taught from a very early age. We want to mix the flavors from a textural and kind of like mouthfeel perspective. So when you are eating it, all that flavor is melding in your mouth. And then you have the cucumber on the side to cool off whatever you're doing because it's spicy, right? So that one is one of the umami factor in there is very high because of the fermented shrimp paste. But that's also the one I will eat with cheese, grilled cheese sandwiches. I will make eggs is actually one of my favorite ways of cooking with that because like when I'm making an omelette, I just add like 2 eggs to 1 teaspoon and you just beat everything up and you cook it. You can have a scramble, you can have an omelette, or you can do it as a hash. You don't really have to add more salt. So in a way, you're not adding more salt to food because it's kind of healthy, right? We should watch our sodium intake.
Sure.
Well, but you know where I'm getting at. So
Yeah,
when we can, we'll add that. But essentially, it's kind of a flavor where you don't have to work that hard for it. Yeah, it's good on avocado toast too. That's also one of my favorite ways of eating that.
Nice.
Yeah. And then the green one, it's the tangy. That's the first two are oil based. So and then the green one is the vinegar based one, and that one is usually eaten with. Traditionally, we have it with Hainanese chicken rice, but we also use it for kueh pai tee, which is like little cups that are like little fried cups of dough where we've put with jicama that's cooked with scallops and stuff. It's a lot of work. I will never make it. It's so much work because I looked at it and I look at auntie making it. I'm like, no, I just want to eat it, right? And they will cut the jicama. And aunties all swear by hand cutting it. So it's a lot of work because they don't believe in using a food processor. Thin strips, it has to fit that little cup that's the size of a shot glass, and then you dribble like just one dot on it on top. Yeah, but that's also like it breaks the flavor from a acid level, so it goes well with like steak. I brought it down to the coast. I like it on seafood actually, like oysters, raw oysters. I would just dribble it on.
Ooh, okay.
It's a different kind of shrimp cocktail kind of sauce, but I mean I like it because it has that little bit of acid. It has a bit of garlic in it, and it's very bright. But they're all different taste profiles, and generally, we make them, and we're very like happy to be able. Like when we first started, we weren't sure whether there was an audience that would like even want to eat it, right? And I remember I said, okay, let's try this and see whether it'll go. And COVID just happened, and I was part of Accelerate Women's then, and I remember they corralled all the new incubator groups, and then because we were all stuck at home, and I remember this distinctly, all the buyers were on one computer screen, and we had 5 minutes to pitch to all of them,
Oh,
right?
wow.
Yeah, or like something like that, and they between Build Oregon, them and all the miracle people that got all the buyers in Oregon, Portland to the products in front of them, and they organized it some magically. And then they were tasting it. And I remember John and Lori and World Market, Joyce, they said, we'll take it, right? Just tell us when you're able to make it. And that was to us the first time we thought, okay, maybe this can work. Maybe people want to eat this.
You've listed off like so many super creative ways to use it, and I was curious because when we're at the market like you are, customers sometimes think of things that you didn't think of. Has anyone ever come up and told you something and you were like, I would have never thought of doing that?
Yes, and then this is always my favorite, one of my favorite ones. So this was when we had a little shop on Northwest 23rd because we needed a kitchen to make our products when we first started, right? And I remember this woman, and I have 2 stories. One of them was like, why are you buying so much? Because I know how much I eat. And she kept coming back. So I finally asked her, what are you doing with the booms? And booms is the hardest one to sell because that funkiness, not everybody grows up with it. So you either love it or you don't like it. She said, yeah, we glaze our bacon with it. Instead of maple glazing, they glaze bacon.
Brush it on
yeah.
bacon.
I said, yeah, that's now how we eat our bacon now. I was like, that was the aha moment. She said, yeah, it's sweeter. So and then there's more umami because of the fermented shrimp paste, and then it tastes better. So I'm like, okay, I can try that. So I did it one night for burger night. So that was amazing. And then there's this girl who came in with her mom once, and then they disappeared. And then they came back again about a week later, and she only came, and her mom was, because Northwest 23rd is a busy street, and her mom literally just sent her down with a credit card. I'm like, why are you buying like 3? I thought you guys just bought. So yeah, they had been, and I didn't even know that this was possible. They emptied the entire jar of chili chunka into a slow cooker and put chicken in it.
Ooh,
Whoa.
yeah. That would be delicious.
Whoa.
That one I haven't tried.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then she said, yeah, I'll eat it. So my mom says we'll buy it. Because you know, we have kids.
That's all it
It's hard
takes.
to
Yeah.
Eat them sometimes, right?
I'm starting to think you can put them on everything. Just
Probably.
about.
Yeah, I haven't found a situation where it goes, But you know, it's always fun, especially at farmers market, when you see the regulars, they come and then they tell you what they've been eating with it. Because our intent when we were making this is like Singaporean food, there's a lot of different types, the Malay, the Indian, the Chinese, right? But you cannot make a lot of it here. But we have such great produce here. And then, so it's like, how do we kind of marry the two and kind of add flavor and cook with what we have? Like salmon here in Pacific Northwest, which is also why we are very spoiled with it. I didn't realize there were different types of salmon. I just thought they came from Norway, right? I have a friend who won't eat anything that's farm. I'm like, what, really? But in Singapore, because we're so small, we don't have land to grow anything. So everything's imported generally. But here there's Chinook, and then there's the king salmon, and there's a sockeye, and then there's something else. I remember being at the market, and I asked the fishmonger, why is that salmon so pale? And he looked at me. I remember this. He was like the disdain look. He said, that's what it's supposed to look like. I didn't know they added color in it, but I said, oh, okay.
Speaking of seafood, I wanted to shift gears a little bit and talk about crabs, since that is the topic of this week's episode. And our question that we got is about crab. Actually, do you want to just go ahead and play or read the question so that we can kind of get into crab?
Yes, I do. I just moved next to a shop that sells live crabs. How do I easily cook them?
Holly, do you mind kind of walking
Yeah.
us through the Singaporean chili crab recipe?
Yeah, if you have access to live crab, that's amazing, right?
Yes.
Because it's very lucky that we can do that, especially here in Portland. But to choose the crab that you want, my mom, like, growing up, is like, you can get the guy to choose it, but when you're picking it up, make sure that the body is firm. If it doesn't feel full and heavy, it's likely that it ate through its reserve. So you're going to cook with a crab that's not very meaty, and you want some meat on the crab, right? So that's
And
one.
that's the you kind of feel
Yep.
the underside
The
of
underside
the crab.
where the belly is, and most of the times the claws are locked, so it should be fine to
to tickle it a
well
little.
well tickle them a bit and just press them a little bit. Yeah, and then I've also had but it's alive. I'm like, in a way, it's like eating chicken. I rather have a chicken that has a face than eat a chicken that was grown without a face. I think I'll have a problem with that more.
That's a read up on chicken husbandry.
You know,
didn't-
you're talking about lab grown meat. I think that may be the
Oh,
future.
yeah.
But I'm like, I would like to know the chicken, like crabs, like treat it with respect. I think that's the best way we can honor its life. And then in cooking it, I don't like to cook the way my mom taught me, which was to lift up the little belly and then stick a chopstick in and wriggle it, because it really does violently protest. And I don't recommend that.
Seems like it doesn't like
I
that.
think we all would.
Chopstick?
Yeah, chopstick or knife.
Yeah.
But chopstick. That one is a bit cruel in a way. So when I learned the more Western ways of cooking, like lobster, right, and stuff, I don't do the boiling water method. I do a slight steam in the pot. And then if I have a pasta pot or the tamale pot, I usually have the water at the bottom. I pile the crabs into the tamale or the pasta pot. And then when the water is really violently steaming, bubbly, I put everything in there, close the cover, and then I walk away for a while.
Yeah.
No, it's really smart. I mean, compared to the the ways that we recommend cleaning live crab, it doesn't start with that par steaming technique, and it seems to make things easier, especially if, like you're really after the tamale, the crab butter.
Yeah.
And I think the methods that we use maybe not quite as good for like harvesting that.
Yeah, I think part of it was also the flavor. Because when I was like looking at some of the how to cook crabs in like Dungeness crab, just make sure that they were the same. There was a lot of like at Kelly's Marina. I always remember they were throwing away the bits, and the first time I saw that, I went because that's the part where in Asia we love to eat is the crab. We call it it's not the roe, it's the milk, the guts or whatever, and that's the flavorful part, right? For us, I think the Filipinos, Carlo chef at Magna cooks a crab fat noodles. That's actually cooked with the guts. Well, the organs, I would say, and it creates so much umami and a lot of flavor. So when I cook the crab, essentially, I don't clean it until it's steamed, and then I do the shock it in ice water just to cut the cooking time, and then you start breaking it apart. And then I always have a bowl underneath it to catch the liquid, because that's in a way a lot of flavor coming out. It's kind of like, I don't know, equivalent like the chicken broth when you cook this chicken well and the juices that flow out, you want to keep that, because when you make your gravy, that's the most yummy part.
Right.
we are.
And that's also why you're steaming, is because you want the water that they're being cooked
Yep.
in to be nice and concentrated
Yeah.
with the flavor.
So when we cook the chili crab as well, it's actually like when you have a few ingredients, you don't need to complicate it very much. I think on the website that I write, you can use aromatics like the ginger and the garlic and the lemongrass if you have them. But if you don't and you're like, you're on the beach, if you have sambal, the crab, and you can cook with a cooked crab. I've done it before, and the quality of the crab is really good in Oregon, so you can do that. You need eggs and very good tomato sauce, right? And then once you have that, you stir fry a bit of oil. If your aromatics, do that. And then you put in your sambal, and you need to wait, and it will sizzle. The sambal will sizzle, and then the oil will separate. That's where you put in the tomato sauce. And then after you've cleaned your crab, you can put it all inside, and then you cover it to let it continue cooking. And it's about, well, usually when I do the steam crab method, it's between 6 to 8 minutes. And you can tell because they are dark, like gray when they're not cooked yet.
So just to be clear, you par steam them for about 6 minutes.
Yep.
And then you cook them in the tomato
Sauce.
sambal sauce for another 6 minutes?
No,
or
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Yeah. So it's literally, we have to clean them first. And then when you cut them open, you need to take the guts out. The guts are, the part that you don't want is the wriggly white bits. That doesn't sound very good, right? But yeah.
I don't want those. That is not what I want.
But that's usually the part you don't want. But the rest of it is usually it's all edible. And then when you have the sauce and make sure it's bubbling. So seafood likes hot environment to cook in, right? So it must be like kind of bubbling with the sambal and tomato base. And then you put the broken up crab in there and you cover it. And then you let it cook for about 2 to 3 minutes.
And you usually like crack the shell a little bit to let the juices in.
I did it, but I forgot today.
Oh, well, no. It was delicious. It was good. It's so good.
Is this a recipe that's on your website?
Yeah, I have it on my website. I also did something with Food 52. They have it. But I never watch myself or listen to myself because it's just, yeah.
It's on YouTube though. If you look
it?
up,
Oh,
yeah, it is.
I didn't know
No, it's a
that.
good video. It's great.
Yeah,
you did a really
no,
good
you-
job.
It's better than I could do.
Yeah, if you look up Food 52 on YouTube, and what was the title of the video, or if you just look up maybe Holly Ong.
Yeah,
Food
Holly Ong,
52,
chili crab.
chili crab,
Yeah.
then you can find it.
I think
the
it
whole-
pops up. or
Yeah.
I
something.
imagine that we might put something in the
Yeah, the
podcast
show
notes.
Or we'll do it on Joy because I'm sure Joy of Cooking will love it too.
Yeah, we actually need to, I want to commission you to help us with our chili crab recipe for the next
Ooh,
edition.
You know, it makes Singapore, because Singapore is so small, right? There's only about 5.5 million of us. So anytime we get to fly our little red flag wherever and tell people about our food, we get so happy.
Yeah, we currently have a chili crab recipe, but after having yours, I feel like maybe we need to
We
work
don't use
work on
we
ours.
don't use enough sambal in our recipe.
Well, yeah, first of all, we're not starting with your awesome OMG sambal, but yeah, pretty sure we just don't have enough broth.
Yeah, there wasn't enough. There's not enough. There needs to be more
Sauce,
for
I mean.
dipping
Yeah.
and like for bread. And you were talking also in the video that you did with Food 52 about using the little fried.
Yeah. When we were growing up, eating the crab is fun, but it's also, as a kid, is the sauce you want to eat, because eating crab is a lot of work, right? And so usually somebody's peeling for you, but we want to dip and eat the sauce. So I remember growing up, there was bread, and it was like the baguette kind of bread. We call it the French jiantou, which is like arrow bread. And then as they got more innovative with the restaurants, they started to do deep fried mantos, which is the little Chinese buns, and kids love them. I mean, we grew up with that flavor. We like sweet bread, right? Little breads. And then deep frying it, it's really good. So it's crispy.
Yeah.
And then you're dipping that into umami tomato-ish sauce. It's very easy to keep a kid happy, and they'll just sit there and eat that.
Just to make the kids happy, does the crab ever get picked before it gets served? Is that just going too far?
Well, as a kid, when at the restaurants, it's served whole with everything. Nobody gets like the crab that's picked. But what was the interesting thing? You have friends who eat crabs with. It's fun to watch them eat crabs because everybody has a technique. There's the people who will do all the hard work, put everything in the thing, and then they'll start to eat. And people who just dive in and just get everything. But we have a kind of thing back home. You don't go to eat crabs with people unless you like them, because it's very hard to go eat with. It's not a first date food. You cannot go on a first date. And when you're doing as a business dinner on stuff, it's a special occasion because it's expensive, and it's also great to break the ice, right? Because you can't be prim and proper. It's not like there's no fine linen and using a knife, and you can't. You have to dive in.
Get messy.
Yeah.
Wear a bib.
Yeah, that too.
Another good recipe that uses live crabs, or if you have access to them, is Cioppino.
Right, the Pacific, version of not even close. It's a tomato-based sauce.
Right.
But yeah, we have a recipe for Cioppino, and that starts off with live crab. I mean, you can, again, like you were saying with chili crab, you can substitute like crab meat or a cooked crab if you can't find live.
Because
but
when
it's not quite as
everybody's
good.
lucky, right? Because
Right.
in Oregon, we can find, and even because I have friends who are fisher guys, right? And then talking to them when they catch the fish and seafood, you realize how much technology has moved for seafood. They freeze it so fast at the sauce, it actually locks in the flavor. Because for the longest time growing up, we never nobody will say buy frozen, because we were like, the wives, the grandmas is like, no, we won't eat that, right? But the technology has caught up that is actually sometimes even fresher than what you get. So I've actually tried the chili crab recipe in the middle somewhere. I can't remember where it was, but I mean, it was only frozen crabs that was available. So I tried it, and I was like, and because you can taste the crab when you defrost it, and you can taste that it is very fresh as well. So even if it was like frozen at sauce, if it's a reputable market with frozen, if you can't find live, just use that.
Yeah. And we have a couple methods for dispatching crabs and lobsters in the book. The one we have used the most is where you put it in the freezer for a little. You don't freeze it solid, but you kind of put it to sleep.
Put it to sleep, yeah.
I don't know if
That
that's
is
what's
like
actually happening, but
that's the easiest, quote unquote, humane method of dispatching them that we know of.
there's a really interesting method from this other podcast that we listen to called Cooking Issues. The host his name is Dave Arnold, and he's just like super, super nerdy about food. He was like a cooking instructor
At the French Culinary Institute, which is now, I cannot remember the name, ICC, International Culinary Center. I'm
something
messing
like
that up.
But anyway, he talked about doing all these experiments, anesthetizing shellfish or crustaceans by basically diluting clove oil in alcohol, like grain alcohol, and then you dilute it even further in seawater, or you make your own seawater by just adding salt. And a certain concentration of that will and it will anesthetize them. Like, they're not dead, they're still alive, but he says they start walking backwards and then they stop moving, and that's when you get them. and then you
Wow.
cook them because they're basically asleep.
Can you taste the clove?
no.
Because as a goth, I
Not
would
at
love
all.
that. Oh, okay. Oh, that's fair.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sad.
This is a very like kind of niche way of doing it, but I did write down the proportions because it's pretty precise. But he says to dilute 10 milliliters of clove oil in 90 milliliters of neutral grain spirits, so like Everclear, and then use 0.53 milliliters of that per liter of seawater, or make your own seawater.
Wow.
And then put the crustaceans in there.
It's easy.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
duh.
I got
mean,
this.
just in case you want to try that, I think putting them in the freezer is a little easier because you kind of do need, for Cioppino, you need to break it up into pieces before you put it in the. You could also just steam it like you did, Holly, and that's even easier.
Yeah, I was saying before we started recording that we get stuff from ABC. Is that the place in Portland? And at that place, you tell them which one out of the tank. It's there just swimming, having a great time. And then you're like, you. And it's like, no. And then you can ask them to clean it for you. So you're still getting a live crab, but, it's still moving when you get it home. But they'll dispatch it and even clean it if you want. Or they'll just dispatch it, sort of, and give it to you. However you want it. I'm just saying there's options for this
There's
person.
options. Yeah, they didn't say what kind of live crab. We've been sort of talking about Dungeness exclusively. I'm guessing they're probably not blue crabs, although they could be.
Or hermit.
Yeah, or hermit crabs.
That would be a very small. Yeah, you need a lot of those.
Lady, this is a pet store.
Excuse me.
I would like that cleaned, please.
What other crabs might you get live? Like a king crab?
No.
Might one get?
I mean, if you're in Alaska or, you're paying for it, I don't even know how you get live king crabs.
Yeah, that's true. I've
What are
never
the ones
don't
that
know
have
how
the
you would-
huge legs?
That's
Yeah.
Those are them? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how you deal with it if you got
Yeah,
it.
right.
But, when we were researching like cleaning crabs and whatnot, we were kind of focused on things that would not destroy your house.
Yeah. A prehistoric monster. And then also another thing I wanted to talk about with crabs is once you, depending on how you cook it, if you have the shells, like say you just pick it and eat it with butter and lemon, save the shells and bake them in the oven. You kind of toast them. There's a recipe in Joy of Cooking for this. I didn't write down the page number, but it's there, where you bake the shells until they're toasted and then you infuse them into butter. So you put the butter in like a double boiler and then you put the shells in there and let it kind of hang out for a while, and then it infuses the butter with the crab flavor, and then you can just strain that, and then you have the butter for, make a really over the top hollandaise sauce or whatever you want to make with it. It's delicious.
That is awesome.
That would be yum.
Yeah.
On page 560
Thank you.
of the 2019 edition.
Any other crab thoughts?
Oh, I was going to mention that there is another method for cleaning crabs. It's really only practical if you're outdoors and there's a place to basically fling all the stuff you don't want. Unfortunately, you have to say goodbye to like all of the crab butter and all the other innards, but it doesn't have, like, ethically the vibes are a little off, but you grab the crab, the Dungeness, so that its head is facing away from you and the top shell's up, and you grab it by the legs and the claw. I mean, I guess you don't need the claws, but anyways, you get it above your head and then you bring it down really hard onto a pointed, craggy rock, and it pretty much just beheads the crab and also takes the top shell off all in one motion. And then all you really have to do is kind of bring the legs together like you're closing a book, kind of, and then just rip it apart.
Yeah, it
And
just
then-
comes apart.
And then you have like one half in each hand, and then you just fling the innards, and then into the
you
pot.
gotta be outside where you don't want to, where you're not worried about making a mess. That's the key to that. But it
So-
is really fast.
It's really fast, and it has one other thing going for it. When you cook the pieces that are left, the meat is very, very sweet. It's just a very clean flavor because the innards aren't there.
And it's a very quick death. I do think it affects the flavor of the meat when you want to kill it quickly. Apologies to any listeners who are like so horrified by this conversation.
Sorry.
You just if you
This
put it
is
in
like
the
part of the territory with eating crabs,
just put it in the freezer and put it to sleep. Then take it outside and Make a mess.
Bash it on a rock and rip it in half. Yeah, perfect.
This is the desert island. See, if anyone gets trapped on a desert island, they will be glad they listened to this podcast
Right,
and they
no
know
freezer.
this method. Exactly.
Mhm.
No, I'm just thinking because Dungeness crab, the shell is actually thinner than the mud crabs that we get back home.
Really?
Yeah, so it's not so. You can actually use your teeth to break them. You cannot do with mud crabs because it's much thicker. You cannot do that. Yeah, but I think in having tried all the crabs around, like when we go out and stuff, Dungeness crab is really in a class of its own.
Yeah,
We're
I
very
agree.
lucky here.
Yeah, we don't get lobsters here, but I feel like it's an equally luxurious substitute.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I'm sure somebody from Maine will disagree.
Oh, hello. I just wanted to take a moment to tell you about an easy way to enhance your meals. Whether they are a healthy vegan grain bowl or that late night snack we'll pretend didn't happen the next day, and that easy way is Marshall's Hot Sauce. For 15 years, chef and cookbook author Sarah Marshall has been hand making and bottling these delicious sauces. She works directly with local farmers and highlights the lovely flavors of fresh seasonal produce. They're gluten-free, there are no additives, dyes, waxes, or binders, and they have mouth-watering combinations like serrano ginger lemongrass, or habanero carrot curry, or even whiskey smoked ghost, which was featured on Hot Ones. So head on over to marshallshotsauce.com, that's Marshall's, HAUTESAUCE.com, and see all the available sauces and spice blends. Oh, that's right. Sarah's created spice packets by dehydrating and freeze-drying actual produce, so you can impart flavor to your food with more vegetables. But that's a story for another day. Find all of these delicious creations at marshallshotsauce.com and enter HOTJOY, that's one word, capital H, AUTE, capital JOY, one word, at checkout for 20% off. That's HOTJOY at checkout for 20% off. And now, back to the show.
And on that note, this week's Joy Scouts recipe is crab cakes because it can be hard to find. Like Dungeness crabs, you don't find in a lot of places. There are crabs on the East Coast that are similar to Dungeness crabs
Yeah,
called
Jonah crabs.
Jonah crabs.
Right.
But crab cakes you can make with, you can buy a crab and then pick it. That's a lot of work, but you can do that. Or you can just buy the lump crab meat at the store. You can even use, it's, not the best, but you can use the canned stuff or frozen crab meat for those. And that's on page 358. Highly recommend serving that with the Creole Remoulade sauce on page 564, which is basically, it's like the French remoulade is a lot milder, but the Creole version has like horseradish in it and celery, green onion, just a little bit of ketchup and Worcestershire sauce, so it's a little tangier and just got more flavor to it. So if you make that recipe, please tag us on Instagram at The Joy of Cooking and let us know what you think.
Also, if you do have access to live crabs, please do not make crab cakes out of them. That is that is a waste of money and a waste of effort. So, just for those of you who do have live crabs, the Cioppino recipe is on page 102. And we do have a Singaporean chili crab recipe that I thought tasted really good until I had Holly's. That is on page 359. And then, of course, Holly's recipe, if you have access to the OMG sambal, that is available on Food 52's website.
But also it's on your website, Holly, which is sibejo.com.
Yep.
And that's SIBEIHO.com. If you have a topic, ingredient, or joy story to share, call our hotline at 503-395-8858. Leave us a message or send us a text. We would love to hear from you. Our next week's topic comes from our caller.
I've been getting into making sauces. Any favorite sauce recipes? I loved the sandwich episode. So funny. Thank you for making me laugh.
We should have Claire back on and talk about sauces.
Oh, that's not a bad idea.
That'll be fun because I feel like you're the sauce. You are a sauce person.
I mean, you might as well say, I like food.
right?
You know,
You're a butter
kind
guy,
what
sauce guy.
What kind of food do you... No, sauce is food.
That's how I got into zoodles. Is I love sauce, but I was eating too many noodles.
we weren't
not
gonna-
to
we
bring
weren't
it
gonna
back
bring
to
up
the zoodles,
the
but
zoodles.
Yeah, we were just going to ignore
Yeah.
that happened.
I'm just saying that's what happened. It's sauce. It's all sauce. I'm not on the episode, but
Do you like zoodles?
I love them now. And before, I always thought just chop up some vegetables and saute it. But what I was looking to replace was the mouthfeel of the fried chemical ramens that I was eating. And a little sauteed zucchini in that shape gives me the bite and the mouthfeel, and I can sauce it up with the sesame and the tahini. It really does work for whatever I was going for, and I feel way better about eating it. So,
I mean, yeah, if that tickles the right spot.
that tickles the right spot. The zoodle spot.
You can pry the Nongshim ramyun from my cold, dead hands.
I just eat it so much.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah.
What's everybody cooking this week? What are you excited about, Holly?
Well, my parents are in town visiting from Singapore, and we're doing the first time ever an American thing called renting an RV.
Whoa.
And we're driving down to Bend and Crater Lake.
Fun. Oh, Crater
nice.
Lake is so pretty.
I didn't realize you had to rent campsites. I thought it's like in the Instagram, you just rock up somewhere and then you're there. So in a hurry, we had to do that. So we're going to figure out how to cook in one too.
Nice. That'll be fun.
Awesome.
We're going to Atlanta this Thursday and then to North Carolina to visit my parents the week after. So I haven't done a ton of research, but I did find out that there's a lot of really good Korean barbecue in Atlanta. So I'm going to try to have some Korean barbecue.
Well, and some of it's like around where we're going to be. Yeah.
Well, it's all over. I mean, it's all over the city. There are really apparently good spots all over the place. So it'll be, this episode will come out too late. I was going to say, if any listeners have any good Korean barbecue spots in Atlanta that you want to recommend, but I'll just rely on other sources, I guess. What are you looking forward to, John? Is there anything you look forward to when we visit my family?
Yeah, there's this hot dog place that your dad has taken me to several times called Pulliam's. They've been there since I think the
forever.
20s.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. They do this like special. It's a Carolina style dog, so it's got your coleslaw and your mustard and your chili, and they're like these hot dogs that are kind of a unnatural or red color.
Bright red. Yeah.
And then they're cut in half, but not all the way, and then they're griddled, cut side down, and yeah, I don't know. They're pretty great.
I don't know. I never loved those, so I would always get the barbecue there.
I mean, there's always barbecue.
Yeah, there's always
Yeah.
barbecue. Really
Yeah.
good pulled pork barbecue in North Carolina. What about you, Dirk?
Oh, man. Well, when I think about the future, it's always about mystery. And when I think of mystery, only one person comes to mind, and that's Dame Angela Lansbury, who was in Murder, She Wrote. And I happen to have the Murder, She Wrote cookbook right here.
No.
And so I've been really eyeing either Haley Mills' lentil loaf roast or Tom Selleck's crunchy tuna melt.
Oh, definitely Tom Selleck's crunchy tuna melt.
So I'll keep you up to date on
What makes
which-
it crunchy?
Well, you'll just have to have
That's a
me back
mystery.
sometime. That's a mystery for another day.
I mean, I'm glad to see a cookbook out that she's associated with.
Yeah.
That is not like a dieting book, because I feel like there was she had like a dieting book.
Yes,
slash recipe
she
book.
did. Yeah, this is actually not. She didn't write this, but
Sure,
these are
sure.
recipes from and inspired by actual episodes. So
Nice.
food that actually appeared within the show. So I'm very excited
Fun.
to know
I want to
about
borrow that.
Haley Mills' lentil loaf. Very excited about that. As a big Parent Trap fan as a kid. So
Yes.
yeah. And Magnum PI, probably knows his way around a crunchy tuna sandwich.
Holly, before we wrap, where can listeners follow you?
We're on Instagram mainly at Sibeho, and we sometimes are on TikTok, but not very often.
And definitely check out Holly's website and buy some of the sambals. They're really, really delicious. And as we discussed, they can go on so many things and make so many things tastier.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for listening to the Joy of Cooking podcast. Before we go, show some love for your favorite podcast by subscribing to the show and leaving us a review. Follow us at joyofcooking.substack.com and on Instagram at thejoyofcooking. Stay tuned for next week where we will tackle sauces, and don't forget to make this week's recipe, crab cakes, on page 358. Call in with questions, hopes, history, or where you find joy in the kitchen. Our number is 503-395-8858. That's 503-395-8858.
We could not do this without our fantastic team at the Joy of Creation Production House. Thank you to Kayleen Veach, our production coordinator, Haley Bowers, our audio engineer, and Sarah Marshall, our producer.